Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Emergency Management Associates, coming to you tonight from the Area Command, 392 miles west of Kitty Hawk Beach, North Carolina. We want to welcome everybody here to our program tonight. As we've been doing for quite some time now, we're going to start off this program with the Pledge of Allegiance and the United States National Anthem. Would everybody please rise?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now would you make welcome straight from Washington, D.C., the United States Army Corps Quartet.
Yeah.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
The United States Army Barbershop Quartet, coming from the Barbershop Quartet Convention in 2015. We want to thank these gentlemen for all that they do for this country and for the world. We want to thank all of our men and women in the armed forces, wherever they might be. God bless them, God protect them, and also our allied forces who have forces around the world as well, helping to protect this world and their own countries. God bless you all. May you all return home to your families in safety after your tours of duty end. God bless you all, and thank you so much for what you've done for all of us. We give these people, these military members, the chance to honor our country every night that we come on. I want to commend these men and women to you. All of our military members, it doesn't matter where they are, when you see them, go up to them, shake their hand, and thank them for their service. I try to do that everywhere I go. If I see a military man, it doesn't matter whether they're reservist or not. Please stop and thank them for their service. They appreciate it. They really do. Many times our men and women in the service don't get the recognition they deserve. And when they're in the service, they are constantly belittled by people around them, by their own neighbors. Sometimes people within the service themselves. So friends, neighbors, loved ones, please thank them for their service. They deserve it. They deserve it. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a great deal to talk about tonight. A great deal to talk about tonight. I want to first start talking about something that has been happening in our country, in the United States of America. Then we'll look at the world. Okay? We'll talk about emergency preparedness tonight as well. The first thing I want to talk about is this man here, over on the left-hand side, Mr. Alvin Bragg. He is the U.S., or he's not the U.S., he is the State Attorney General to New York. And last week, a leak came out from his office stating that Mr. T was going to be arrested this week. It still has not happened. Okay? But there's something else that you also need to know. Okay? There's a lot going on. Okay? Under our noses. Literally. A package today. This is unreal. Again, a package was delivered to the New York Attorney General's office in Manhattan amid a Mr. T probe, or a probe of Mr. T. A letter attached to a suspicious powder that was delivered said, quote, "Alvin, I'll kill you," unquote. Police say a package with a suspicious white powder was delivered to a building housing the Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's office today, amid an investigation against Mr. T. Emergency personnel responded to that location. An incredible thing happened. Okay? Law enforcement responded. As you can see by that truck up on the right-hand corner of our slide here, that is a truck that specifically responds to drugs and alcohol. Okay? Something dangerous. A law enforcement source confirmed that there was a note attached saying, "Alvin, I'll kill you," in the envelope. District Attorney Alvin Bragg is currently weighing whether to proceed with an indictment against former President Mr. T for alleged hush money payments made to a former porn star, Stormy Daniels, in 2016. The envelope delivered by the U.S. Postal Service Friday had been deemed non-hazardous at the scene. The mailroom to the DA's office is the one who intercepted it. Police responded to the scene shortly after 12 noon, and as yet no one has been ordered to evacuate. Again, the police said it was non-hazardous. The grand jury involved in Mr. T's case has been meeting in the building where the suspicious package was reported, but it doesn't sit on Fridays. Okay? The grand jury does not sit on Fridays, meaning they don't show up for work, which means since Tuesday, when they last showed up for normal business, they have not been there since Tuesday evening. The grand jury was scheduled to meet Wednesday to hear from at least one additional witness in the case, but the proceedings were canceled. Two familiar sources told Fox News Digital on Wednesday that the grand jury was canceled amid major dissension within the district attorney's office. One source claimed that the district attorney is having trouble convincing the grand jury on potential charges due to the weakness of the case. Mr. T has not been formally notified about whether Bragg actually plans to bring charges against him. That's according to sources that are familiar with the case. Last week, Mr. T posted on Truth Social that leaks coming from the district attorney's office indicated that he would be arrested on Tuesday this week. He encouraged his supporters to protest the expected indictment and accused Bragg's office of conducting a political witch hunt. Now, with that said, Mr. Jim Jordan, who is a congressman, sitting on a political committee to assess things like this and find out what is going on, whether it's a political act or not. After the supposed arrest did not happen, Bragg's office wrote in a letter responding to several leading House Republicans and their requests for information on the Mr. T probe, and that the former president created a false expectation that his arrest was imminent. Okay? The former president created a false expectation that his arrest was imminent. That is because there was a leak of information from the grand jury. In a private memo sent to employees, Mr. Bragg, the AG of New York, decried attempts by Mr. T and the GOP lawmakers to intimidate their office. Quote, "We do not tolerate attempts to intimidate our office or threaten the rule of law in New York," Bragg said in an email to employees over the weekend that was obtained by Politico and confirmed by Fox News Digital. Quote, "Our law enforcement partners will ensure that any specific or credible threats against the office will be fully investigated and that the proper safeguards are in place so all 1,600 employees of our office have a secure work environment." Unquote. The eyes of the nation are on Manhattan this week and probably as well as next week, as Americans wait to find out whether or not Mr. T will be arrested over an alleged hush money payment. It's not just the payment to Stormy Daniels. They're trying to get other ideas involved here to try to create a picture that would be worthy of not just misdemeanor but a felony arrest. It's been 3 days since the grand jury has sat and listened to Bragg or the testimony that Bragg has to offer them. The leak that went out that Bragg was going to arrest Mr. T this past Tuesday has not come to fruition yet. Mr. T isn't done fighting back either. Mr. T just blew the lid off the plot to throw him in prison, not just one to wait around and see what happens. The former president recently exposed the role Joe Biden is playing in the Manhattan District Attorney's efforts to throw him in jail for allegedly paying porn star Stormy Daniels $130,000 to not speak of the alleged affair that they had, which the Democrats argue is somewhat a violation of campaign finance law. But the DOJ, the Department of Defense, the Federal Department of, not the Department of Defense, the Federal Department of Justice has never proven that fact because there's not sufficient evidence to prove that fact. While Manhattan Democrat District Attorney and State Attorney General Alvin Bragg has been all too happy to face the public face of the Les crusade. According to the former president, it's Biden and his administration who are really pulling the strings behind the scenes. Mr. T took to Truth Social to explain that Biden had placed operatives from the DOJ inside the Manhattan DA's office for the sole purpose of trumping up charges against him, no pun intended, so he can't run for president for a third term. Biden wants to pretend he has nothing to do with the Manhattan DA's assault on democracy, when in fact he has stuffed the DA's office with Department of Injustice people, including one top DOJ operative from DC who is actually running the horseface witch hunt. That's according to what Mr. T wrote on social media. Quote, Bragg is a Soros racist in reverse. George Soros is funded Mr. Bragg's campaign for district attorney in New York. There have been many other district attorneys throughout this country that have been funded by George Soros. George Soros spent millions of dollars, and it's on record, to get people in the Department of Justice, to get people in the district attorney's office, to do the Democrats' bidding. President T, former President T, said, I beat them twice, doing much better the second time, and despite their disinformation campaign, they don't want to run against Mr. T or my great record, unquote. But while the legacy media is, as always, simply dismissing Mr. T's claims out of hand, others are actually asking the questions that should be asked when a former president and potential frontrunner for the next presidential race is being targeted again by criminal investigations, exclusively led by the opposition political party. Fox News' Julie Banderas also raised questions over Bragg's role and his motivation in the case, openly questioning whether Bragg was using federal money to conduct his witch hunt. Ms. Banderas pointed out, quote, you also have to look at Bragg and wonder what his motivation is. Is he using federal money to conduct this investigation? If so, that would be tampering with an election. Which election? The 2024 presidential election. Bragg already tampering with the election a year early. Banderas also gave some credence to Mr. T's claim by noting that many in Washington, D.C. have questioned whether Biden is behind the Manhattan DA's effort. It's Bragg. It's Bragg getting messaging from Washington, D.C., as many in Washington have accused. Banderas noted, quote, that perhaps Biden is behind this because Biden has something to gain if, in fact, the former president is indicted because he is his biggest enemy. Mr. T is allegedly Biden's biggest enemy, his biggest challenger when it comes to the presidential election of 2024. At the same time, the Manhattan District Attorney appears to be full steam ahead towards arresting the former president. Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy, Republican of California, has already made it clear that Republicans will investigate whether taxpayer money is being used if Mr. T is arrested. Like most of the nonsense coming out of the American political system these days, there are simply more questions than answers, concrete answers. We may not just find answers to these questions more sooner than later. We might. And that's why it is. That's the way it is. Now, about a week ago, when word came out from Mr. T's office, radio host Jesse Kelly told his listeners nearly a week ago, please do not protest in cities where every level of power is controlled by people who want to lock you up for whatever you believe, meaning the Democrat Communist Party. Do not protest in cities where every level of power is controlled by people who want to lock you up for whatever you believe. Take that advice or ignore it. But today, we live in a different time. Plan accordingly. Now, I am asking anyone today, what are you going to do? Anyone who hears my voice, do not protest anywhere near a left-wing communist Democrat government. They are begging you to do so they can arrest you and put you away, so your voice would no longer matter. And arrest you they will. After January 6th, the Democrat communists that is run by the Biden administration need to make a scene to make their point that conservatives are evil. They will plant communist agitator operatives in the crowd to make it look like conservatives are breaking the law, and their own federal LEOs, i.e. the FBI, will already be in place to stoke the flames, just like they did on January 6th. Those plants will swoop in to make a scene of arresting people. Now, with that said, I can back that up, because Biden, information has come out of Washington, out from the White House. Biden wants to arrest another 1,000 people that were allegedly at the Capitol on January 6th. 2 years later, Biden still wants to go back and arrest 1,000 people that were allegedly at the Capitol on January 6th. Joe Biden has already weaponized the Justice Department to jail non-violent supporters, Republican or conservative, That's why there will likely not be any conservatives in the streets protesting if Mr. T is arrested. Do not give Joe Biden his wish. There are so many other ways that we can protest what Joe Biden and his criminal element are doing. Let's do it legally. And legally, we can take him down and his entire administration. There's already investigations in place, not just in Congress, but out in these states. Conservative radio host Steve Deace warned, Steve Deace, D-E-A-C-E. He warned that we need to play chess here. Do not react to this injustice emotionally. Let's play chess. Let's put all the pieces on the board. Let's play the game, but play it our way. Play it our way. Now, there's another story that I want to address tonight. This just came out. It's come out over the last few days. I want all of you to know what's going on. This organization right here, we've talked about this organization for many years now. This organization right here is responsible for a lot more things that are about to happen in our world. Not just here in the United States, but around the world. A few days ago, this story first saw the light of day. The control freaks of this organization right here and another organization that I'll show you right here in just a second. This organization right here are trying to control us again. They're trying to control us again. They have come up with a warning. A deadly fungus is considered an urgent threat by this organization right here. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is now issuing an urgent warning about a dangerous fungus that is showing up all over the country. The study was published in the Annals of Internal Medicine. We are not at the levels we were at in 2020, nowhere close. But cases have soared over the last several years, which have medical professionals very concerned. The name of the fungus is Candida auris or C. auris. It's a fungus typically found in hospital settings and long-term care facilities. It's a type of yeast. In 2019, there were only 476 cases reported. However, by 2021, the reported cases had doubled to 1,471. Fox News reported today that it can cause severe infections and death in those who are immunocompromised or have underlying medical issues and allegedly in devices at home. That fungus could be called and found in devices at home, possibly. And I'm saying possibly. Cases first started popping up in Chicago and New York back in 2013. But now we are seeing cases pop up around the country. Now I'm saying this is alleged. I've looked at the story. I have vetted the story. It's true. So I'm telling you this. And everyone here must, and I should say, it's your duty to be aware of this. Tell your friends about it, because this is just one more thing that is coming up to control us. Dr. Frederick Davis, the Associate Chair of Emergency Medicine at Northwell Health on Long Island, New York, stated, quote, Candida auris is a strain of yeast that has been found in hospital settings. He added, many recent cases have been found to be resistant to commonly used medications to treat infection. And in the limited number of cases, we have had a 30% to 60% mortality rate, meaning 30 to 60% of the people died. According to Dr. Davis, the fungus is usually not a threat to healthy people. In some people, it can reside on one's skin and around the mouth or the rectum, and not cause any symptoms or concern. This is called asymptomatic colonization. Asymptomatic colonization, meaning there are no symptoms. Okay? I just wanted to give you that information because this just came out this week. Everybody needs to know what's going on around them. I am giving you information to use so you are aware of everything going on, because this government and the government of the world, this organization right here, wants to make sure that we do not survive what they have in store for us. Earlier this week, we talked about the financial system and what it's doing. The financial system is in the process of bottoming out. Big banks first started going under. Now smaller banks and institutions are going under as well. The Swiss bank in Switzerland was first. One of the largest banks in Switzerland went belly up. Isn't that interesting? The Fed wants to make sure that these banks don't go under. Really, they want to ensure that the largest banks aren't going to go under. They're going to make sure that the other banks go away. Say bye-bye. Why? Because, folks, they want to make sure that by the end of this year that they can institute the digital dollar. No more will we have the opportunity to have greenbacks in our pocket. No more will we be able to have this in our pockets. Okay? They don't want us to have this. Okay? They want a digital dollar. They want to make sure that they can control whatever we can buy, whatever we can have. If they say that we can't have it, they're going to make sure we don't get it. Anything we buy will be under scrutiny from a higher power, the government. As I asked everybody, please go to your present state governments. Go to your governor. Go to your state and federal representatives, the Senate and the congressmen that are responsible to you, and tell them to vote against the digital dollar. Make sure that it doesn't happen in your state. Quite a few governments are doing this. Quite a few governors are making sure that it will not happen in their state. It's up to all of us to make sure that we stand up for our beliefs, for our families, our friends, and those that we love. We need to pass this information on. It needs to go viral to everybody that we know. Our family, our extended family, our friends, our neighbors, the people we work with, and the people that we talk to on social media. We need to get this information out. This is imperative. It's for our well-being. Please, this is for our well-being and the well-being of our country. If not, this organization will win. And not just that. Guess who else wants to get it? The NWO. The NWO. They want complete and absolute control. That's who is responsible for what we're seeing happen. Okay? Make sure you get this out. Rob said he called his congresswoman there in Arizona and said, stop any kind of change in our money. That's what we want you to do, guys. This is exactly what we want you to do. It needs to stop. It needs to start on the grassroots level. You and I, everybody that we know. We can stop things from happening if we open our mouths. A lot of people are saying, oh, I can't do that. I'm afraid. I don't have the gumption to do it. Folks, if you don't, they're going to take over and rule your lives. Wolfman says our representatives are the problem. You're right. That's why we need to tell them to do it our way or they won't stay in office. Yes, you can tell them that. You will do this our way, not yours. If you don't do this, we will make sure you will not stay in office. Yes, all of us can make sure a recall of our representatives happen. We can take them down. I don't want anybody hurt. I don't want the legislators hurt. I don't want the public hurt. But you and I can make sure we retain our system of government that we want to have, not what they want. If they don't want to do business our way, we can take them out and put people in who will do our business. Some of us could run the government ourselves. Some of us could be elected congressmen and senators in our state and in the federal government. We need to put responsible individuals in power to do our business, not theirs. Okay? Biden is under the gun right now. He's under the microscope because his son got a lot of money from the government. And in fact, Biden testified several years ago that his son did not get any money. And Biden himself had no level of knowledge that his son was going into Burisma. Who's Burisma? It's the oil company of Ukraine. Guess what? Hunter Biden had no business being there. He had no experience in the oil business. Yet who was on the board of Burisma? Hunter Biden. He got millions of dollars because his daddy put him in there when daddy was the vice president of the United States. And yet Biden said it didn't happen. Now there is evidence. There was an email that came out showing that Biden did know what happened. So Biden lied to the public. Biden lied under investigation. So Biden could be taken down, right? Oh yes, and there's a lot of reasons to take him down, legally. We can do it, but we need to stand up for ourselves. We need to have a self-sustainable country, as Lawrence Burton here says here in the chat. We have the means to do it, and not to rely on others. As soon as President T left office, before he left office, there was plenty of oil here in the United States. For the first time in our history, we were oil dependent on ourselves. Of ourselves. We didn't have to get oil or gas from any country around the world. Yet as soon as this Biden character gets into office, he cancels all drilling. He cancels oil leases. He stops the oil pipeline coming out of Alaska. He stopped coal from being produced. He shut down steel factories. The people who make our cars rely on steel. Now the prices of cars have skyrocketed. The prices of everything have skyrocketed because of that man in D.C. We've proven it. But it's our responsibility, ladies and gentlemen, to stop it. And we have that responsibility, and we can do it. But we have to spread this word that it's on a grassroots level. We can stop it if we do our job that each of us has to do. And I'm not just pointing the finger at you, I'm pointing it at me as well. I'm leading the charge. I'm doing it. Glenn Beck is leading the charge. He's doing it. We need to stop it, and we need to stop it right now. The buck stops here. The buck stops here. Rob says Biden needs to go along with his party and people and out the door. Yeah. Now guys, GB Maps said good evening, Ron and Mod Squad, as well as everybody else who is here tonight. JB, thank you for that. I want to thank everybody that's here. I want to thank our wonderful mods that are on this channel. Some of the best mods in history are here on this channel. And I greatly appreciate that, and I want to say I love you for it and all the work that you do. Okay? I had several people contact me earlier today that said they didn't know how to support our program since our program here is relatively new on this particular channel. Yes, we had a channel before this that had nearly 25,000 subscribers. Just 30 subscribers less than 25,000. And a hacker got hold of it. And I'm still trying to get it back. But nobody can give us super chats. Apparently, people aren't paying attention to what is in our program description. At the top of the program description, right below this program that you're seeing tonight, is our email. Okay? rltnspdema@gmail.com. That's a new Gmail address that we have. The other one went away when somebody hacked us. Okay? You can support us on PayPal. If you want to support us, give us support through PayPal. We have two addresses there at PayPal. We also have a Venmo location. That's also there at the top of the program description. You can also support us by sending us cards and letters, and wrap those cards and letters in the money or the check you want to send us. Make that payable to my name. EMA doesn't do it. Okay? My bank doesn't like those letters or the name of the company. Make them out to me. I appreciate that. But you can write a letter and wrap it around the money or the check that you want to send. You can put the check or money inside of a card. I love cards and letters. I have had one card in the mail in the last 3 weeks. I used to get 2 or 3 cards a week at least, or letters. I love cards and letters, guys. I really do. Every time we get a letter or a card, I share it with you. I really appreciate it. People are sending us packages as well. The last one contained that EMA sign that's directly behind me. I really appreciate it. That was a hand-painted sign. Somebody painstakingly painted that for me, and I really, really appreciate it. I love those things. We've had a rock collection. We didn't have a rock collection because throughout my life I've had an ex-wife that was very vindictive and stole my rock collection or threw it away. I now have another rock collection thanks to Sandy from San Francisco, a wonderful lady. I also have trains. Very shortly I'm going to have another train layout, an N-scale train layout in this office, and I'll show it to you when I get it started, because I have trains and you guys have helped me. I appreciate that. You guys have helped me do a lot of things. There are plaques on this wall behind me that you guys have sent me. There's another one on the wall at the floor level that I have yet to put on the wall because I'm looking around how I'm going to put it up here. It's also a hand drawing of a 1950s steam locomotive. I love those things. I really do. I appreciate everything that you guys have done for me, and I'm trying to give it back in spades. I love and appreciate all of you. Okay? I really do. Now, folks, let's get on with this program. I have some other good information to share with you tonight. This is Friday, Preparedness Friday. I'm going to share with you information about emergency preparedness. Okay? A lot of people on this channel have asked about martial law. Martial law can be declared at any time when these people that we've talked about tonight get power. If they get power. When they get power. I want to discuss with you tonight 7 tactics that you need to know. Survival tactics that you need to know. Imagine waking up to find the world in chaos. Looting and riots spread like wildfire, while police and military and anti-gun activists are down in the streets. Okay? Police and anti-gun activists are gunning down people in the streets. The power grid is down, and there's no telling if it will ever come back. Rape and murder spiraling out of control as a society collapses around us. Not just here in the United States, but around the world. That's what's happening. Everything that you've come to know and rely on is gone. Some things that we're talking about right now have already happened. It's going to get worse. Do you have what it takes to protect your family against the scum of humanity? Do you have what it takes to protect your family from the scum of humanity? This is not a Mad Max movie. It is the very real threat that all of us are facing, a threat of martial law. If you've ever been paying attention to recent events that we've talked about here on this channel, you know it's only a matter of time before our government turns against us. Even though we live in relative comfort and safety, the truth is this: the world around us is in a very unstable place, an unstable situation, and it became more unstable last weekend. The current political divide between conservatives and liberal Democrats threatens to destabilize America and people and nations around the world. Corporations and corrupt government have brought us to the brink of class warfare. Class warfare. Remember that word. The mistrust of police and authority causes riots in the streets, and it only gets worse as the number of cops and civilian deaths increase. We have not been talking lately about police deaths. I was notifying you here on this channel up until this last few weeks about the police officers that were shot and officers that have been killed, and including the dog officers, the canine officers. As of the last couple weeks, I have not told you about the number of police and canine officers that have been taken down, that will never ever be with us again. As we have talked about the last couple weeks, our monetary system is connected to the rest of the world. But just like England, who's to say who the next president will be, and what the next president won't pass, that the next president won't pass a law that sends the U.S. economy into the Stone Age, as Biden is trying to do now. Even if none of these things come to pass, the fact is the bubble that we currently live in cannot hold out forever. Our economy is collapsing. Our countries are collapsing. With the retirement of the baby boom generation, the baby boomer generation, America and the rest of the world is going to find itself financially bankrupt. When that day comes, you're going to find yourselves in the middle of a situation that you're not going to want, a situation you can't control, regardless of how much you have prepared for it. You're going to have to make some tough decisions. If you want to survive, you're going to need to make a plan. We've talked about emergency plans for a very long time. The emergency plans are not just for earthquakes and volcanoes. And yes, a little bit later we're going to talk about some earthquakes and volcanoes that I'm going to show you. If you want to survive all of this, you need to have a plan. I keep talking about plans, and I'm going to continue to talk about emergency plans. If you want to find out about how to write an emergency preparedness plan and what goes into an emergency preparedness plan, go over to our website. Yes, our website is active. I made sure that the other day. Someone said it was taken down, and yes, it had been. I put it back up. Go over to our website and go into the files sharing area. The files sharing area. There you're going to find almost everything that you're going to need to know about emergency plans, food storage, and water storage. What you need to know to survive. Stock up on food and water. Stock up on it well ahead of time. And I don't think we have much longer to talk about this. I really don't think we have much longer to talk about this. They're already taking things away from us. They're already sending prices out of sight. They're taking things off our tables. They're taking things off our shelves. Gas is going up again. Gas prices the day before yesterday here where I live were at $3.09 a gallon, $3.09 a gallon. Today it was $3.39 a gallon where I get gas, which is one of the least expensive places you can get. $3.39 a gallon. It's gone up 30 cents literally overnight. I checked today. Make sure that you have food and water. This is what is imperative for each and every one of us. Food and water. We've talked about this a lot. A lot. You need to have food and water. Rob is saying it's $4.69 a gallon in parts of Arizona. Unreal. Unreal. It was almost $4 a gallon when I left Utah almost 2 years ago. It was going out of sight then. When I got here in North Carolina, it was $2.69 a gallon. It's nearly $1 more than that right now. And it could get that within the next few days. Make sure you can get your gallon at the least amount of money. Keep your tanks full. Okay? Diana Lawrence says hers is $5.29 a gallon. Incredible prices. Dean Bizow, I think his name's pronounced, I'm sorry if I butchered your name, Dean. Expensive here in Michigan also. It's expensive everywhere. Make sure you can get your gas at the least expensive price and keep your tanks full. You never know when you're going to need to bug out or leave your community because things have gotten so bad. Okay? Just like in a natural disaster, such as a hurricane. If you don't have gas in your car, you're not going to be able to leave. We saw that happen in New Orleans. We've seen it happen in Mississippi. We've seen it happen in Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, everywhere. Florida. You need to have a full tank of gas all the time. Just like in a natural disaster, such as a hurricane, store shelves are going to be emptied in a matter of hours. That's soon going to happen, and it'll be that way for a long time. Make sure you have plenty of food and water stocked and stored long before you actually may need it. Right now, I have 6 cases of water here. I have 4 months worth of water for my pups. I'm going to keep that up as well. I'm not going to drink or use water from the tap to cook with. Not going to happen. Make sure you have water here in your homes that you can use. At least 3 days worth of water should always be on hand. At least. We've been talking everybody to have at least 3 months worth of food and water stored. I've got 6 months at least. Plus, I have another 50 plus gallons of water at my back in hands to use to wash and to flush toilets with. 50 gallons of water stored just for that. We need to be ready for everything. Okay? Water is particularly valuable as it is the first thing that you're going to run out of during an emergency. Following a disaster, your regular water source will be cut off or contaminated. And you will get warnings not to use your water. They will turn off the water. So it is vital that you secure as much clean water as possible. The average person needs at least 1 gallon of water per day for drinking and an additional 2 gallons of water for proper sanitation. You will need twice as much if you live in a hot climate. You won't have time to gather supplies in an emergency. You're not going to have time, and the supplies will not be there. And everyone else will have to do the same thing. They're all going to have the same ideas, but then the store shelves are going to be bare. So again, I'm asking everybody else right now to stock up long before this disaster hits, and it's already going. It's already going. We do not have much longer. If you do find yourself caught without something that you know you're going to need, I recommend sticking to gas stations and avoiding large stores like Walmart. Remember, credit card machines may be down during a crisis. Remember me talking about digital money? ATMs are going to be gone. Okay? They're going to control the money. So it's always a good idea to carry cash. But remember, if they turn to digital currency, our cash is only good between us, between people. Okay? It's a good idea to carry cash and be prepared to buy extra for supplies. The law of supply and demand goes into overdrive during a crisis. Now, if it's too dangerous for you to leave your home, fill up your bathtub. There's a plastic container that's called a BOB, a bob, that you can fill up in your bathtub to use as drinking water later. Once you have as much food and water as you're going to get, it's best to hunker down and play it safe until you can assess the situation. You also have about 50 gallons or so in your water tank, depending on your hot water tank. If you need to preserve that, you need to turn off the supply at the hot water tank, above the hot water tank, and kill the heat. Turn off the heat to heat your water. You may need to boil water, but at least you'll have fresh water in that hot water tank. Okay? When a disaster strikes, you may need to be inside your home, to shelter in, as they say. To shelter in. Remember that word, shelter in. SHELTER, shelter in. And if not, you may need to bug out, meaning to leave your home and go someplace else. We've talked about this before. If you shelter in, you still need these same supplies to get through the disaster, whatever happens, or the emergency, doesn't matter. Either way, you're going to need supplies, food, water, and other things. You need to have those available. Things are not going to be easy. They're not going to get any easier either. You may have to leave and bug out. Where are you going to go? You need to make those decisions right now, immediately. And when you're making the decisions, you need to have a map. You need to have a map. Okay? Have a map. On the map, take a light colored marker and mark your bug out routes. Make a marker make a mark on your map of your bug out routes. I'm saying routes in plural for a reason. You need to have at least 3 different places that you could go during an emergency. Why? Because the first place may be filled up, regardless of any other situations that you've tried to prepare for. When trying to assess a place that you could go to, make sure that during an emergency that your name is on the list for an occupation of a space to go to. And you need to plan for at least 3 separate locations, including a place to be good, to be away from everybody else, and have a route to get to each of those places. That's why I say 3 separate routes marked in different colors on your map. Don't use a black magic marker, because it will invalidate your map, where you're not going to know what streets you're going to travel. Use a light colored marker, orange, yellow, a lighter red or pink color that's not going to obliterate the routes, the street names and such. Put those routes on a map, and then place those routes in one of those gallon bags that I've talked about, Ziploc baggies. That way it remains a solid, good map. It won't get destroyed by water or anything else. Okay? You can always take it out and refer to it. You can take it out and make changes, or buy a new map and put those routes on a new map if you decide to make a change. I'm telling you guys, this is absolutely necessary. Make a map. Have routes. At least 3 different routes to get to your destination, and 3 different destinations to go to, so you and your family can be safe wherever it is. If you don't, you're going to be sorry, and you're going to wish you had. When it comes to disaster preparedness, there are 2 schools of thought. Some people that prepare believe that bugging out and surviving in the wild is the answer. I'm ready for that. I personally am ready for that. If I have to, I can bug out and go almost anywhere I want. I have a map. My routes are planned out. I have a plan. I've thought about it. That's why I have written many emergency preparedness plans. Each of us must do that. Each of us must do that. Folks, I'm asking you to do it again. Okay? I'm asking you to do it again. Like I said, some people believe that bugging out and surviving in the wild is the answer, while others think that their chances of survival are greater if they stay put and shelter in place. Again, shelter in place. That is the byword. Shelter in place. How many times have I said that now? Shelter in place. Shelter in place. Shelter in place. I've said it more than 3 times. That means this is important. This is important. The truth is, it really depends on the situation, and you should be prepared to do either one when disaster strikes. Now, disaster preparedness. Reasons to shelter in or reasons to bug out. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. I think this is exactly what we need to do. Okay? I am not one to tell you something that I am not willing to do. I have never been that person. I have always, no matter what, when I say something, I mean it, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes, and I hope you are as well. Okay? Disaster preparedness, reasons to shelter in place or reasons to bug out. I have been approached by many people and asked about this topic so many times I can't even remember how many times it's been. Now, I've decided to research and answer this to the best of my knowledge with factual and an intelligent reply. I have done many seminars on this very thing. So tonight, I am prepared to talk with you about this. There are many reasons to stay put in a worst case scenario, as there are to leave one's comfort zone, your own home environment. Now, this can be grouped into many categories, each one having a pro and a con, and actually what I would like you to do as part of your emergency planning. Take a piece of paper and divide it in half. Don't cut it, just draw a line straight down the middle of it. On one side, the pros, the reasons you could stay in your home, and the other, the reasons that you can't. Those reasons you can't are called bugging out. The reasons you want to stay in place are called shelter in place. Okay? Now, you can have a pro and a con for both, as well as the nature of the disaster. You need to figure that into this whole scenario as well. The nature of the disaster is going to figure it in to whether you're going to shelter in place or you're going to bug out. Okay? You're going to have to make that decision whether it's of a natural type of situation or a man-made type of disaster. A man-made type of disaster might be a worst case scenario. A natural type of disaster could be a worst case scenario or less of a worst case, if you know what I mean. Now, natural disasters. First, I want to take a look at the natural types of disasters that would preclude one to leave your home and having to go to a bug out location or a government shelter. Now, there are government shelters available, but remember what we talked about yesterday and last week? They've been kicking out our citizens out of the shelters and putting in undocumented people into those shelters. People that cross the border illegally. Think about that. I would not want to go to a government shelter. I know people that have been in shelters. That's no fun. And with what's going on, as Tony said, as Sage Pup said the other night, you won't be able to get in, especially during an emergency. So you need to come up with a bug out plan where you could go in case you can't stay at your home. If you're living along the coast, as some of you are, and up to 500 to 1,000 miles from the Gulf of Mexico or the Atlantic or Pacific Ocean, you could be vulnerable to hurricanes. Southern and Midwestern states get tornadoes. Flooding from severe storms and snowmelts can happen all over the world and in North America. Just the other day, we had a tornado in Los Angeles. That doesn't happen every day. It's the first time in probably 50 years. Flooding from severe storms and snowmelts can happen at any time, and now that it is happening. Upwards of 15 to 16 feet of snow in Utah, in the mountains of Utah. Isn't that something? Let me show you a picture of a friend of mine, okay? He's on social media, he's on YouTube, okay? Trent and Allie on YouTube. Look at the snow outside their garage. Outside one of their garages. And the same thing is happening at their home, which is not more than 25 feet away from the garage. Huge monster snowdrifts, upwards of 15 and 16 feet of snow in the Utah mountains. And it's not just there. It's not just there. It's literally all over the place. I'm sorry that picture came out smaller. That's a larger picture there. That's my friend Trent. Okay? You need to be aware of what's going on. This snow is going to melt. And it's not going to be fun. It's going to cause flooding. Creeks and streams and rivers are going to flood. And property is going to be in danger. What are you going to do? And not just here in this country alone. This has happened all over the world. All of these situations can be a cause for emergency measures to be implemented and evacuation orders mandated, as we saw during the fire season and we've seen during flooding in and around Los Angeles and Los Angeles, San Francisco, and other places in Northern California. Flooding. All these can be a cause for emergency measures to be implemented and evacuation orders to be mandated. And evacuation orders come congested highways. Congested highways. The interstate highway system here in America was implemented a long time ago. Some 70 years ago during the Eisenhower administration. And so much has gone on. And as such, this highway system has not gone through a major overhaul or a design period since. The roadways are bad. 2 years ago, I traveled out here from Utah. New Mexico roads were terrible. Potholes all over. My truck, my car were banging all over the place. This being the case, the roadways are outdated, primarily because they could not foresee the increase in population due to the birth and immigration rates. This increase in the amount of traffic on major thoroughfares is going to make traffic jams hundreds of miles long. Hundreds of miles long. Sitting in these traffic jams will fray your nerves and waste your fuel. It will consume what fuel you have left in your vehicle. That's why I'm telling you to keep your fuel tanks full in your car. The result of this, you will probably run out of fuel. You will become the victim of road rage. You're going to lose your belongings and possibly your life. Getting on the road could also put you in contact with some kind of authorities. Roadblocks. We've talked about this in the past as well. Roadblocks. Avoid roadblocks. Avoid authorities at any cost when you're evacuating, when you're bugging out. Use surface roads as much as possible. Stay off major thoroughfares. With riots and looting happening around you, around the world, the last thing you want to do is confront police or the military. Unless your life is directly at risk, you should stay indoors and away from being in a situation where you might be dealt with by authorities or by gangs or drug dealers. Once the violence starts, you're just as likely to be shot down in the street as the rioters next to you. The authorities are only concerned with their own safety, and they won't think twice about taking people out to try to protect themselves if they think their lives are in danger. Police and National Guard have been ready for martial law since 9/11. Since before January 6th, Pelosi had our National Guard living in garages at below zero temperatures, below freezing temperatures, in local garages in Washington, D.C. and Virginia. Okay, that was before January 6th. Fortunately, former President Trump opened the Trump Hotel to our National Guard and troops to help protect them, and offered them food as well. But guess what happens when a natural disaster or a martial law statement is made? If you're going to be held at gunpoint by the authorities, do whatever they say. Do whatever they say. Any sign of resistance, you will be killed. Do whatever your authorities tell you to do. If you don't, they may kill you. They won't think twice about it. They will not think twice about it. If you do not voluntarily evacuate when the mandate comes, then the governing body will forcefully evacuate you to a central location. In the past, during fire season and flooding season, evacuation routes were made public. Mandates were made public to evacuate your area to keep you safe. If this happens again during a martial law situation, they will evacuate you at gunpoint if necessary. And they will take you to a place where the amenities that you will face you're not going to be accustomed to, with communal toilets, showers if available, cots, a blanket maybe, no privacy, and enclosed in an environment that you will not be familiar with and you won't be able to leave. Once in there, you will be limited in any way that you get out. You can't. You won't be able to get away. You will be stuck, imprisoned by the government for your own good, as they will tell you. You will have no rights, and little if any protection from your fellow man. You stand at risk of theft, rape, assault, and anything else illegal that anyone wants to do harm of any kind against you. We see that in the shelters around this country, in the major cities and around the world. You're at risk of everyone around you. This happened when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans. I saw it. I personally saw it. And people were put up in the Superdome. And the people, the kind of people that were put there, destroyed that major football league stadium. It's not going to be pleasant. Don't expect anything to change. The government can't and will not protect you. They do not have the resources to do that. Don Patoka says martial law is a big deal. Learn to be a gray man. What does he mean by a gray man? Learn to become invisible. Nobody will see you if you don't make a stir. Make yourself invisible. You can shelter in place if you can, or you can bug out if you can, but if you get taken to a place, make sure that you are not visible to anybody around you. Okay? Let's talk about man-made disasters for a few minutes. We've seen plenty of those in the past years. Brazil burning down. Bolivia burning down. I'm talking about wildfires. Argentina, wildfires. Colombia, Venezuela, wildfires. Central America, wildfires. Europe, wildfires. Heavy rains. Yes, folks, that does happen. Heavy rains destroyed India during the last cyclone. Killed people. floated cars down the roads, buried the cars in mud and water, making them ineffective in the future. Totally worthless. Australia was forced to endure many, many, many cyclones, as India was. They had major flooding the last time just a few weeks ago. It's happening everywhere. Storms hit England this past year. Forced flooding, evacuations. Let's talk about man-made disasters for a minute. A second disaster scenario is the man-made disaster, which can be war, martial law, riots, fires, economic losses on a grand scale that we've been talking about, and it will lead to depression and a total devaluation of the dollar around the world. This would be a domino effect against all mankind, and that would pit man against man, neighbor against neighbor, daughter against daughter, son against son. Each and every one of us would have to be an army of one until such time as a city, the state, or the federal government comes to our rescue, which they probably won't do. Without power of numbers and firepower, fortresses and supplies, survival chances of an individual are limited, and without cunning and wit, survival chances will almost be impossible. Once the government is back in control, if they ever are back in control, an area martial law will take place. Martial law will be in place. If you have been unfortunate enough to have been displaced for one reason or another and survive, then you will be relocated. We've seen tornadoes hit cities, states, and neighborhoods. Neighborhoods throughout the areas totally destroyed. People displaced for whatever reason. We've seen the same thing during hurricanes. We've seen it during floods. We've seen it during fires. But don't fool yourself. You may not be me. You may not be relocated with the rest of your family. You may be separated from them. And that separation could happen for a very, very long time. Do you shelter in or do you bug out? Let's talk about that. That's a big question. Are you going to shelter in, shelter in place, or are you going to bug out? I have convinced some of you by now that bugging out is the way to go. I have convinced some of you that you need to shelter in. Either way, you have to make plans. And you have to take it on upon yourself to make sure you have the supplies that you need, whichever way you go. But you must remember, do not do it too late. Do not do this too late. You need to prepare now. You must know exactly when to do it. You need to know when you're going to shelter in and if you're going to bug out. You need to know exactly when you're going to do it. And it might be more early than later. When the word comes out that a natural disaster is probable, not when it is happening. If you live in a big city, before it's probable would be the best choice. Before the interstates become busier and the rush hour traffic is normal. For those who cannot or who do not have a bug out location, if you live in a big city, I recommend that you put together a bug out bag anyway. A bug out bag or a tote anyway. Prepare to bug out as if you did have someplace to go. And you need to plan for that. I keep telling you, you need to plan for that, whether you plan on sheltering or not. You need to have at least 1 or 2 or 3 bug out locations and 2 or 3 routes to travel. Okay? If you see traffic backing up on one route, check another route. Traffic backing up could be a sign of a roadblock of authorities, National Guard, or the military. Avoid the big thoroughfares. Okay? Prepare to bug out as if you did have someplace to go. In the meantime, look at places you would want to go out in the countryside that would be near you. Look for a place in the countryside that could be near you, but yet not far enough to be clear of the danger. And make weekend drives to that area if you can. That way you can plan your routes. You will have the opportunity to plan your routes at that point in time. You need to do this soon. Look around those areas and see if there are vacation rentals, abandoned homes, country lanes, old roads, public lands, etc. These are possible venues for shelters in an emergency. Temporary as they might be, it could be a temporary place for you to be. If because of an invalid status you are unable to bug out, I would suggest you make plans with relatives to check on you and you on them. Do all you can to make your habitation more secure. If possible, window and door alarms, bolts on the doors, even removable bars over the doors from the inside to prevent anyone from bursting into your home. Boards and plywood, 3/4 of an inch if possible, to place over windows with peepholes. Painted black on the outside, placed and secured from the inside. Painted black on the outside so no one can see in, and they don't want to see the wood. Okay? If they're out on the street, they may not see the wood that's under the black paint. Okay? Make yourself a home that is secure. Make one room or part of one room a storage space for your emergency preparations, your supplies. Store your food supplies in this space, water as well. When things happen, fill up your bathtub like I spoke about earlier with water and all the containers you can. Ziploc bags, plastic bags, anything. Don't put them on the floor so you have wet floors. Don't do that. Keep them in sinks and bathtubs. The factors that bring us to this decision to bug out or not can be many. Of those are fear, anxiety, antisocial behavior, or mental instability. Fear is the strongest of all, brought on by such things as an unstable government. Guess what? We're facing that right now, all over the world. Weak or unstable economic times. We're facing that as well, aren't we? Wars and rumors of wars. We're facing that. We all, no matter where we are in this world, are facing religious persecution, racial riots, whatever pushes your buttons. Racial riots in Sweden. I never thought that would happen. In Sweden. You must overcome your fear because this leads to panic. Fear leads to panic. And in a panic situation, you're going to do things that can and will be putting yourselves and others in harm's way. It will cause you to make judgment calls that are not correct, or ill-conceived, or half-baked. Bugging in or out, it's the same. You have to have supplies. You have to have a plan. You have to remain calm. You have to have a good, clear mind about everything around you at all times. And you have to remain alert to the conditions around you at hand. And you need to be able to react at a moment's notice. These things and the conditions you will be in will change, and you must be able to change with those conditions. The only difference between the two is your distance traveled and the time it started. Either one of them will leave you in a primary location at one point in time, sooner or later. Again, either one of them you will have to leave your primary location at one point in time, sooner or later, by choice or by force. It'll either be your choice or you will be forced, either by the government or looters and gangs. Okay? Government mandate or looters and gangs. Or maybe it won't happen at all. It's a roll of the dice. It's a roll of the dice. Now, with that said, people have died when they should have evacuated, when they were told to evacuate by the authorities during hurricanes, flooding, and fires. As I have talked about in the past, I went to a family member and tried to get them to evacuate their house when a fire was coming down a canyon in front of them and smoke was filling their house, and they didn't want to leave until a sheriff came and told them to evacuate. I told the sheriff that I was there to try to get them to evacuate, and he says, if they don't leave, I will come back and arrest them and make them leave. That is going to be your decision as well. Are you going to be forced to leave? I would rather leave under my own power and do what I want to do rather than being forced to leave or forced to do what they want me to do. People have died when they should have evacuated. But it was their choice. Next time the government may not give us a choice. This is my thinking and not my observations. Now, I have taken a long time putting this together. I'm now telling you, take it how you think you need to. Use this information how you think you need to. Stay informed. The best thing that you can do in a crisis is to know exactly what's happening around you. In today's digital society, we have access to the latest information at the touch of a button, literally. But we take it for granted how much we will rely on. We take it for granted. If the government resorted to martial law, there's a good chance that they will shut off the cell towers to try to maintain the situation, to try to take control. Television also will become useless if the power grid goes down. Your best bet is a wind-up radio, an AM/FM weather radio. I've got wind-up, I've got battery powered. We've talked about this before. This will become increasingly important if you decide you have to leave your home and flee the city. Should I stay or should I go? This is the most important question that you're going to have to ask yourself. The safest place for you and your family is inside your house with the lights out. Inside your house with the lights out. But what if you can no longer stay in your home? Running out of food or water is one of the worst things that can happen to you under martial law. Don't wait until it's too late. Make a plan. How many times have I said tonight to make a plan? Know how many days that you can stay in one spot. And have a backup plan. Have a backup plan. How many times have I said that? Know how many days you can stay in one spot. Have a backup location. have a backup location just ready in case you have to leave in a hurry. Just because it's your home doesn't mean you have to die in your home. Be prepared to leave. There have been many times throughout my presentations here on this channel and the last channel. There have been many times that we've talked about this. Folks, I'm telling you, we need to make sure that we can do the things we need to do. We need to make sure that we can do the things we need to do. Always be prepared to leave. Are you going to run for the hills? We talked about this before too. If you run out of supplies or run and find your location is no longer safe, you're better off bugging out. If you live in a major city, it's in your best interest to flee to the outskirts or just head out into the surrounding countryside. The problem with leaving the city is that new supplies will be harder to find. On the other hand, you will generally be safer outside city limits and away from the chaos. This is where your survival skills will come in handy. Your survival skills will come in handy. Be prepared to live off the grid in a tent and forage for food and water. If you live in a super dense populated area, like the East Coast, be prepared to keep traveling for a while. Get out of the major city. Now, I'm going to say something that may not be very popular. Ditch your car if you have to. Ditch your car if you have to. If you live in a major city and you decide to leave, you're probably not going to be alone. In a crisis situation, the roads will fill up and come to a standstill almost immediately. You have an exit plan that stays away from major highways. Have an exit plan that stays away from major highways and intersections. Be prepared to abandon your vehicle and proceed on foot or a bicycle if necessary. Although it is not preferred if you have supplies, this might be the only way to get your family out of danger. Bicycles might seem like a slow option when you are fleeing for your life, but you are much safer than being trapped on the highway with everybody else. Now, I'm going to talk about something that's not that popular on this channel, on this platform. Please listen to me. Please listen to me. You need to be able to protect yourselves. You need to be able to protect yourselves. We've talked about this before. Whether you're fleeing an emergency or scouting for supplies, it is in your best interest to have something for defense. We talked about nugs. We talked about ball bats. I don't recommend carrying a ball bat in the middle of the night, because the cops don't take kindly to that. I've seen people get arrested for carrying a ball bat at midnight. What are you doing with a ball bat at midnight? You're not playing ball. Be careful with what you decide to protect yourself with. You never know what kind of sort of situation that you're going to be walking into, and you should be prepared for the worst. Once society breaks down, it's going to be every man and woman and child for themselves. Don't be a victim of society. Protect yourselves and your loved ones. I recommend a good hunting, R-I-F-L-E. I recommend a good hunting, R-I-F-L-E, for protection, as well as a means to feed yourself, should supplies run low. I carry a 9mm with me almost all the time now. Almost all the time. I didn't used to do that. Make sure you just don't own, okay? I repeat this. Make sure that you don't just own your WEAPON. Make sure that you have the proper training with that piece. You need to understand it. You need to know exactly how to use it and how it is used, how it operates. Know how to clean it and how to fix it if it breaks. I cannot stress that enough. I've seen police officers that don't even clean their weapons. When it comes time for them to work, guess what? They don't work. I've seen police officers, and this is no joke, I've seen police officers with cobwebs, spider webs in their nugs. Spider webs in their nugs because they don't clean them. They just put them in their holster and never use them. Then when it comes to a time of an emergency and they try to use them, they don't operate. I cannot stress this enough. Know exactly how to use it, how to clean it, how to fix it if it breaks. Now, say there is safety in numbers. Even without a WEAPON, the safest thing you can do is be part of a group. We've talked about this before. Making sure you are with people of the same mindset as you. Being on your own might feel safer in the short run, but long-term survival, you're going to need people that you can count on and they can count on you to protect you and you them. That will ease your burden. Everybody can share responsibilities. In a survival situation, you're safer having other people with you. But it's an important thing to choose the right group. A mob of people all working together can get more accomplished, but those people may become harder to control. Smaller groups might be your best situation. Beware of groups that make poor survival choices. That can get you killed. If they don't listen to you, don't hesitate to leave them behind. Again, if the people in your group don't listen to you, be prepared to leave them behind. Now, I'm going to talk for a minute about plans. Long-term plans. If the government decides to enact widespread martial law against its citizens, there is no telling how long it will last. It could go on for days, it could go on for weeks, it could go on forever. Would you have what it takes to endure the harsh realities of life after the government has lost control? How does someone prepare for widespread collapse of banks? And it's happening. Widespread collapse of the economy. It's happening. The best way to learn is from the past. The best way to learn is from the past. I've talked about this before as well, and I mean it. That's why Obama and Biden have been taking out the past, taking it out of our school books, taking it out of the libraries so no one has access to the past. After the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991, its citizens went through a similar ordeal. After the fall, most people stopped going to work because they were no longer being paid. The banks collapsed in Russia, and everyone lost their savings. In order to not starve, families were forced to work on farms and barter their possessions for bread. After the collapse, crime became an ever-present reality, and it was no longer safe to leave one's house. Such is what is going to happen here, in your community, in your neck of the woods. A lot of the population could not handle the sudden change from a secure existence to that of no work and no hope for the future. Imagine what that is going to do to society. drugs and alcohol became prevalent in the society, and the average lifespan went way, way down. Their currency became nearly worthless, and jobs that paid in foreign currency were desperately sought after. Corruption set in, and the average citizen found themselves forced to pay for protection from violent gangs and ex-law enforcement. Ex-law enforcement. This, I know, is a worst-case scenario, but the lessons from this are clear. You should learn how to grow your own food and to practice this safety of getting prepared daily. The safety of getting prepared daily. You should keep a small amount of currency with you, money, out of the bank in case of a banking failure, and it's happening more recently than before. More and more small banks, as I've said before, are collapsing. It's planned. It's planned. If you're going to buy any future possessions, it's good to make sure that they retain value if you have to trade them for something down the line. The old adage of being prepared is not just a scout motto. It's a lifestyle. The number one way to survive martial law is to be prepared. Right now, if you can, grow your own food. Make sure you have seeds right now to grow your own food. It's going to disappear from the marketplace. Right now, if you can grow your own food, stock up on canned goods and learn the skills necessary to provide for yourself in the wild. You may have to bug out. Have a bug out bag ready or a bug out tote ready. Make plans for every kind of disaster that you can think of. Knowledge is going to be your ultimate preparation for anything that life is going to throw at you. Learning from the past and staying informed are your best weapons in the world that we live in. Don't trust authority to keep you and your loved ones safe. Trust yourselves. Imagine waking up to find yourself prepared for martial law and not panicking because you have a plan. Instead of loading up the car and jumping on the highway, you quietly hide and bide your time until it's safe to leave your home. You can stay away from any authorities until you find someplace safe where you can live off the land. Martial law is coming, and when it does, you're going to have to be strong. With the way society is breaking down, martial law is not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And when it all comes crashing down, how well will you be? Will you be left scrambling on the streets? Or will you be calm, collected, and well on your way to safety? That, brothers and sisters, friends and neighbors, is what I am talking about tonight. Will you be left scrambling around in the streets when everybody else is doing the same? Robbing, pillaging, dumpster diving? What are you going to do? What are you prepared to do? What do you want to do? That is the question. That is really the question we're talking about tonight. What are you willing to do for yourselves? Folks, that's it. That's my presentation. I've talked for a good long time tonight, longer than I had planned on talking. But folks, this was necessary. This was absolutely necessary. I've been meaning to talk about this for a long time. I've done it now. The time to act is now. The time to act is now. We've been talking about all of this for a long time. The time to act is now. Now, one more thing before I leave tonight. Okay? I want to talk to you about this too. We've had some earthquakes. We've had some earthquakes. There was a 4.5 magnitude earthquake at Mauna Loa in Hawaii. A 4.5 magnitude earthquake at Mauna Loa in Hawaii. Note that it says here a 4.1. USGS downgraded it. USGS downgraded it, folks. It's what they do. Let me show you something else. This might blow you away. Look at all these other earthquakes around it. Around it are foreshocks and aftershocks. This is a volcano, ladies and gentlemen. This is a volcano. There were 54 felt reports. 54 felt reports here. Let me go back to that previous shot here. Okay? Let me show you this. See those two felt reports just west and north of Hilo? Guess what? These were the felt reports from where else? The EMSC. Two felt reports from the EMSC. Why? Because they were talked down. The two felt reports, they said that the earthquake lasted 8 to 10 seconds, and it was light. Light. A 4.5 magnitude earthquake, ladies and gentlemen, is a moderate earthquake. A light earthquake is a 3.5. 52 felt reports at USGS, but we can't tell what those felt reports said. Let me show you something else. Okay? Remember I said that the earthquake was downgraded? Let me show you something else. This slide right here says it all. Okay? Note up in the left-hand corner. USGS called it a 4.42 earthquake. On the USGS information, there were two earthquakes that they said happened. One was a 3.8. One was a 4.42. Let me enlarge this so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay? Over on the left-hand side, we see the station, the seismograph that reported what we see on the right. Okay? Over on the right, you see magnitude, don't you? 4.72, 6.86, 3.5, 4.4, 4.8, 3.37, 5.43. Yes, 5.43. Notice that 6 that we had there? 2.28, 5.06, 3.09, 4.37, 4.52. 4.42 is what this at the top of this on the left hand side said. 4.42. Notice where they put it. Okay? 3.1, 4.04, 3.93, 4.62, 3.29. Now, I did the math on it. There were 18, count them, there were 18 seismographs reporting earthquakes in the range of 4.42. Okay? That many earthquake recording stations. These were seismograms. Okay? These were seismograms. Seismographs recording the information. Okay? Well, guess what? The end result was 4.56. 4.56. Isn't that interesting? Okay? This proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that this agency and others can't be trusted. It was a minimum of 4.42, just like they said, a minimum. But they didn't say that. Down in the back page where the seismologists, the scientists put information, it had 3 different settings, a 3.92 and a 4.42. Guess which one it was? It was 4.5. If you add those up and divide by the number of seismic stations, that's what it was. Okay? So you can't trust the agencies. We've talked about it before. This is proof of it. This is proof of it. Now, before I end this program, we will be back here Sunday morning, actually Sunday afternoon Eastern Time. Sunday morning on the East Coast and in Arizona. We're going to a special church service in Hickory, North Carolina on Sunday at 10. It might take up to an hour to get back home. I'm hoping no more than 20-30 minutes, but regardless, I might be back on as early as 1 o'clock Eastern Time and as late as 2 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday to do the Sunday school class. So please follow me with that Sunday afternoon Eastern Time between 1 and 2 p.m. With Come Follow Me, the Savior said. We're going to be talking about the parables, and then we're going to go forward with Easter. We're going to be talking about Easter after that. But folks, be prepared to be with me on Sunday. And be prepared to contribute in the chat. I would love to have you all contribute in the chat. That would be wonderful. Okay? As Don Patoka is saying right now in the chat, remember to pray for the guidance of the still small voice and the 4 pillars of preparedness: people, provisions, protection, and productivity. Now, I'm going over to the second epistle of Timothy in the New Testament, chapter 1, verse 7. And this goes well with what we've been talking about tonight. For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, and of love, and of a sound mind. For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, and of love, and of a sound mind. Be not therefore ashamed of the testimony of our Lord, nor of his prisoner, but be thou partaker of the afflictions of the gospel according to the power of God. Be prepared, ladies and gentlemen, be prepared. I love each and every one of you. I spent hours putting this presentation together. That's why we put Preparation Friday, Preparedness Friday in the title. In the future and in the past, every time you see the word preparedness in the title of our program, it's a good thing to watch that program, because that is what we're going to talk about. That's what we're going to talk about. Now, with that said, there was a solar eruption the other day. It's hitting us now and tomorrow. It was an M-class flare, an M3 class flare, and it affected our magnetosphere. It affected our magnetosphere. There's some interruption of radio transmissions in police, fire, and medical communications on the radios, and ham radio as well, and television as well. Be prepared for whatever happens. The sunspot in the middle of the sun we showed you last night. Okay? That in the southern portion of the sun is what erupted. It could erupt again. Be prepared, guys. We talked about this before. Be prepared. Now, guys, I hope you have a good night and a better tomorrow. If anything happens between now and Monday, we will be back on the air to talk about it as soon as the information becomes available. Until then, guys, I hope you have a great night, and we will see you on the other side. May God be with you this day and always. May God be with you and prepare you for whatever happens. May God bless you. May God be with you again until we can meet again. Have a great night, everybody. We will see you around the corner. Good night.